Welcome to Module 1. This module will provide an overview of the business opportunities in the sharing economy. It will provide an executive summary and visuals of the content. This is the content overview. We will start with looking into the development of sharing, the past, present, and future, the trends underlying the sharing economy, the sharing features, the sharing benefits for the entrepreneur, the people, and the society as a whole, and the sharing challenges for the entrepreneur and the society as a whole. Look at this small village from the past, for example. One person has skills in boat building, one has crops from the field. Since people didn't have enough of things, people needed to share in order to fulfill their needs. Small communities grew into big communities, or what we call cities today. In these villages, we didn't and don't share pots and pans anymore, but we started sharing public spaces such as libraries and swimming pools. The sharing in the public domain has been and still is organized by public institutions. What is new today is the concept of stranger sharing, which happens with people we don't personally know or people we have no friends in common with. Additionally to this, we share intimate items such as our homes, cars, and consumer goods. Since we share with strangers, there is no social contract in place and no trust already established, and there is a higher risk since the items we share are intimate and important to us. To summarize, we started sharing in small villages, and sharing prospered because we didn't have enough of things. We grew into big communities and we shared public spaces. Today, we have an abundance of items, while we don't have an abundance of space or earth resources. This is driving the stranger sharing that's growing today. Additionally, technologies have enabled us to build a digital world parallel to the physical world, which allows us to share on a global scale. In order to understand the value of the sharing economy in today's society, it is important to analyze a series of trends. The triple bottom line was used to identify, categorize, and understand these trends and their interrelatedness. The triple bottom line consists of the people or the society, the human condition, the planet or ecology, the planetary condition, and the profit economy, the economic condition. Additionally, the subcategory of technology is included as it is an asset of humanity, but does not fulfill the societal dimensions of the triple bottom line. About 200 years ago, there were less than 1 billion humans living on Earth. Today, in 2019, according to UN calculations, there are 7.7 billion of us. The primary determinants of this growth can be found in fertility, mortality, and population momentum. The fertility rate is considered the main driver of population growth, not the mortality rate. Fertility rates are determined by the socioeconomic development of the population, especially the status and well-being of women. The higher the level of well-being, the lower the fertility rate. Putting it simple, when women expect their offspring to survive, they're more likely to bear less children. Because of global socioeconomic development, population growth is expected to stabilize around 11 billion at the end of this century. Connecting population growth to the sharing economy, more people generally means more products, because every human being needs to satisfy their needs such as housing, energy, and transportation. Through better distribution and usage of our resources, we can cope with less products while still satisfying the same human needs for everyone. Living standards can be defined as the level of wealth, comfort, material goods, and necessities available. Many people share the belief that things are getting worse, even though statistics actually show that things are getting better. For example, the average life expectancy has increased from an average of 30 years in the 1800s to 72 years in 2019. Also, extreme poverty, as described in the level 1 in this picture, has decreased from 85% of the world population in 1800s to only 9% nowadays. Over the last 20 years, the proportion of people living in extreme poverty has halved. Access to financial means is the gateway to improvement of living standards. Money can provide quality of food, clean water, comfortable housing, and quality healthcare. Considering the fact that humans live longer and have more money to spend, it becomes evident that an average individual requires larger amounts of resources throughout his or her life. Higher living standards means more products, more environmental impact, and economic inefficiencies. Through the sharing of resources, humanity can maintain their living standards while using less products. There is no general trend that inequality would be rising everywhere. Over the last 25 years, inequality has gone up in many countries and has fallen in many others. It's important to recognize this. It shows that rising inequality is not universal, nor inevitable in the face of globalization, and suggests that politics and policy at the individual country level can make a difference. Less developed countries show high levels of inequality, but this gap is considerably declining since the 1990s. Whereas advanced industrial economies show relatively low levels of inequality, but is rising in most instances. As long as inequality exists, we may assume that there's a certain group at the economic bottom of society who doesn't have access to all the perks that society has to offer nowadays. In this light, the value of the sharing economy can be found in the way it provides flexible access to products and services against an acceptable fee, instead of the need to purchase and own the product as a whole. More than one half of the world population now lives in urban areas, and virtually all countries of the world are becoming increasingly urbanized. Expressing this in numbers, in the 1800s, 7.3% of humanity worldwide lived in urbanized areas. Today, an estimated 56.2% of the global society is urbanized, whereas projections suggest that this number will rise further as we move forward. This trend is changing the landscape of human settlement, with significant implications for living conditions. For example, availability of space per inhabitant, the environment, and the development in different parts of the world. The value of the sharing economy can be found in downsizing the amount of privately owned goods that fill up public space, leaving more public space free to be assigned to public purposes. The fact that we have been living closer together doesn't mean that the sense of community has grown in parallel. A central part of modern life has become to distinguish ourselves from others. Consumption and ownership of specific products have become assets by which humans identify themselves in modern society. This trend is emphasized by social media platforms that allow individuals to stay inside their personal bubble of information and connections while losing contact with other parts of society. The value of sharing can be found in reconnecting community members through increased sharing activity amongst each other. Additionally, sharing can serve as a product trait by which individuals identify themselves as being more sustainable consumers. Moving over to the ecological trends, we start with the planetary boundaries. Population growth and increased living standards have resulted in an increased human impact on the planet Earth, as can be seen in the picture here. All the products and goods we use require raw materials, infrastructure, and energy to be created. In the process of extracting raw materials, natural ecosystems all over the world are being disrupted. Further, in the production, usage, and disposal phase of products, humans cast waste back into the environment. This whole product life cycle contributes heavily to global challenges like climate change and pollution of land, water, and air. Sharing means that we can distribute our resources in a more efficient way over the people, so we need less products to actually satisfy human needs. Therefore, the sharing economy helps us to stay within the planetary boundaries. Putting this into a model, this means that if humanity wants to achieve a sustainable way of living, we should all stay within the donuts, as described in this picture in the green area. Traditional economic models assume that the material resources which are used for producing products come in infinite supply and at a low cost. However, Earth's resources are finite. This means that materials will become more scarce and prices more volatile as we use and waste more of them. This has the potential to disrupt traditional business models in which companies' success is measured by the amount of products sold and therefore resources needed. The way we have and are handling our resources have resulted in that we are using more than Earth can handle. One way of visualizing this is in the Humanities Overshoot Day as visualized in this picture, where our demands for ecological resources in a year exceeds what Earth can generate in that year. The value of sharing can be found in utilizing resources better by optimizing usage of what's already produced and in the market, instead of continuously extracting new resources. This has the potential to make businesses less dependent on virgin resource supply. There are many effects that can be assigned to globalization, but one that is evident is that our global village has become more connected and interdependent. Shifts in geopolitics and international supply chains directly influence living conditions on a local level. Think, for example, of a price increase or even absence of a certain product when the agricultural activity in one region is haunted by a drought. The value of sharing economy can be found in the fact that through decentralizing supply of goods, local needs can be satisfied with local suppliers. This way, product availability and pricing are tailored down to the local conditions, and societies and economies are more resilient. The traditional take-make-waste approach to production and consumption is not sustainable and highly inefficient in terms of resource optimization. As opposed to this linear method, the circular economy provides an economically viable alternative. By introducing circular business models, companies are able to decouple their economic growth from their environmental impact. This they do through using resources more instead of using more resources. Furthermore, these business models show great potential for sparking innovation, increasing revenue streams, decreasing production costs, and mitigating risks that are connected to resource usage and ecological impacts. Sharing business models optimize products that are already present in the market. Therefore, it has extremely high potential to create profitable forms of new business without making radical changes in existing company infrastructures. Practitioners in the field are also experimenting with combining sharing business models with other circular business models like refurbishment and recycling. This type of thinking outside of the box can create huge opportunities for creative entrepreneurs and companies. Let's move on to the trend of technology. Without technologies, the sharing economy would not have been able to grow as it has today. We utilize this roadmap that shows where we come from, where we are today, and where we are going. The eras described in this picture are interconnected and they feed into each other. The technologies of the internet era, such as web software and network technologies, enable the social media age. During the 2008 recession, the social media age, on the foundation of communication and ratings among peers on a global scale, grew. In parallel, the first collaborative economy companies started popping up, supposedly building an economy fueled by peer-to-peer, human connections, and sustainability, based on technologies like mobile apps, geodata, online payments, ratings, and marketplace software. Any successful innovation, trend, or development goes through S-curves. The three phases of S-curves are getting the underlying technology right, finding product market fit and finding the practical use case, and extreme growth. At the beginning of the S-curve, it is often difficult to predict the potential of new innovations and developments. The current position of the sharing economy on the S-curve depends on what type of entrepreneurship is discussed. Offline and social enterprise initiatives, as well as cooperatives, are still in their infancy. There are some platforms that have adopted a more commercial model combined with utilizing above-mentioned technologies that have grown quickly. However, some initiatives have adopted a similar model and have failed. The sharing economy in our eyes is in the phase of finding a product market fit, since some platforms have succeeded, but failure rate is still very high. Let's talk about the future of sharing. Relating to the ratings and reputation systems, it has been said that the sharing economy is a driver towards more distributed trust. In an economy where we trust people more than the institutions who would normally regulate trust and accountability, trust regulation and measurement will rely much on reputation capital. This will further affect our perception of wealth, markets, power, and identity. The collaborative economy age, which is forming today, will feed into the autonomous world and modern well-being. These following eras are based more on emerging technologies such as blockchain, with its potential in distributed ownership, benefit, trust, and accountability, Internet of Things, with its potential of connecting all devices and humans in order to streamline processes, artificial intelligence, with its potential of making the process of matching supply and demand more effective and efficient, as well as improving company trust, customer experience, and their internal processes. This will be more elaborated in the following modules. The sharing economy platforms who are currently in the lead will need to start thinking about the new technologies of the autonomous world and what it will mean for their platforms and participants. It is said that 45% of the fastest growing companies in the world will employ more smart machines and virtual assistants than people by 2018. Sharing economy platforms have already started using AI for core processes like matching supply and demand and determining price. These new technologies are crucial for continued competitiveness because consumers expect more customization, buyers want to pay less while sellers want to earn more, online fraud is growing while a safe marketplace is expected as a bare minimum, efficient planning and matching is necessary for sharing economy platforms, and finally, in order to stay competitive, companies need to be part of the autonomous world. Internet of Things and artificial intelligence can help address these changes and new preferences. The mobility industry is, for example, experimenting with self-driving cars, and in the future, AI will be able to automate, for example, our whole mobility experience. Accommodation automation can enable hospitality without human presence through, for example, digital locks, digitized home applications, and so on. Hosts could scale their businesses while still maintaining personalized services. Internet of Things and artificial intelligence will also create a shift in new jobs and skills needed, meaning that platforms should also start looking at filling this skills and knowledge gap. One example of how the autonomous world could and should be combined with a sharing economy is the instance of an autonomous mobility system. A video about this can be found at sharedmobilityprinciples.org or in our reading format of this content. This shows how the sharing economy could become the new norm and facilitate all kinds of activities. Quoting Jeremy Rifkin, as muddy as the sharing economy is, it's the first new economic system to enter onto the world stage since capitalism and socialism in the 19th century. The sharing economy enables the sharing of virtual goods at near zero marginal cost, disrupting entire industries. The cost of production versus the potential of distribution is drastically changing. With Internet of Things, the zero marginal cost can move to physical things as well. For example, people can now produce their own renewable energy at zero marginal costs. Also, when car sharing is combined with self-driving transportation, marginal costs will be near zero in transportation and logistics in the next years. There is no commonly accepted definition of the sharing economy. Additionally, the sharing economy is surrounded by a sea of terms that are used as synonyms but do not necessarily mean the same thing. This project aims to provide advice on how to utilize the sharing economy potential as an entrepreneur or company. Therefore, the focus does not lie within defining the sharing economy, but rather explaining its features. For those who are still curious about the different definitions, you can find those on Moodle. Throughout this online training, a broad scope of the sharing economy is adopted. Following, we will provide an overview of features that are central to the sharing business proposition and for building a sharing business model. The focus value and impact of sharing business models extend beyond mere economic benefits, where it also touches on social and environmental dimensions. The first feature is that no value is wasted, also framed as activating underused capacity. Imagine a scenario of building a house. It is an enormous undertaking in terms of resources and capacity. Resources are extracted and forged into the right material, which are then transported to the appropriate location. Only now the actual activity of building the house can begin. Electricity, sewage, and heating systems need to be installed as well. After this, the house will be furnished. Let's also consider the human labor that has gone into this building. Now imagine if this house is not being used by anyone for long periods of times, for example, when the owners are working or on holiday for several days. This idle space is what Airbnb managed to activate. They identified wasted resources and found a way of matching this supply with demand. BlaBlaCar also managed this through unlocking idle space in cars to people needing a ride. They built a business model around available supply and existing infrastructures. The core business model of the sharing economy revolves around activating or unlocking the value of resources that are standing idle and connecting them with demand. The next feature relates to access over ownership. If you would go travel for a few weeks and needed a backpack, what would you do? Buy it? Maybe check with your family to see if someone had one. But if they didn't, the next stop would be the shop. Our society is built on the notion that when we need something, we purchase it. Today's sharing economy solutions are tapping into the stranger sharing and, similar to renting services, give preference to providing access to products. Access over ownership has a strong connection to the wasted value. Take a drill as an example. We only need to use it when we need a hole in our wall. It has been said that the drill will only be used 12 to 15 minutes of its entire product life. Or take the example of a car. How often do you see parked or unused cars in your own street? Sharing economy solutions make products available through access rather than ownership. Access over ownership does not mean that no one owns the product. It means that ownership and access intertwine to utilize our product more and better. It also allows established companies to rethink their role in the market, from provider to, for example, matchmaker. The next feature relates to prosumers. The growth of the sharing economy empowers the passive consumer to have more roles, such as creators, collaborators, financiers, producers, and providers. The consumers and producers on the platform are also called prosumers. A sharing economy solution should enable consumers to, in comparison to owning products and services, benefit from providing access to them. Meanwhile, providers should feel empowered and be provided with the opportunity for a better position in the economy and society. Prosumers and the sharing economy community is further elaborated in Module 2. The next feature is distributed trust in the sharing economy as its currency. The sharing economy is tapping into stranger sharing. Sharing with strangers creates a gap between the known and the unknown, and this gap represents risk. This risk is considered high since often sharing involves the sharing of intimate possessions like your car or your home. This gap is overcome through building trust, and as Rachel Botsman suggests, distributed trust in the new economy. Distributed trust enables sharing economy solutions to be adopted by the prosumers. Therefore, trust is often named as the currency of the sharing economy. The concept of trust is further examined in Module 2. And finally, the feature of transparency, open-mindedness, humanness, and authenticity. In a perfect world, sharing economy solutions would be built on transparency, open-mindedness, humanness, and authenticity. These characteristics should guide a company in their long-term and short-term strategic decisions. Transparency also connects to that users share information among each other in order to access available resources, while matching of supply and demand It also relates to providing real value, smooth, seamless, and on-demand services. The sharing economy has been argued to have positive societal, ecological, and economic benefits. The following mentioned benefits are potential benefits, meaning that the sharing economy solutions do not by definition or automatically create these benefits. We start by looking at macro benefits. One benefit from the sharing economy could be reframing scarcity to abundance. The sharing economy can be a way of living in abundance and satisfy human needs in a world with finite and scarce resources without exceeding the planetary boundaries. We can do this through utilizing and distributing our resources better once they are in the market. If the assumption is that less resources are needed to cater to the growing demands and products can be circulated amongst people, it has the potential to lower pressure on our ecology. For example, ride-sharing or car-sharing could lead to fewer cars being produced, fewer cars on the roads, less emissions, less driven kilometers, and fewer owned cars. It has also been found that one car-sharing vehicle could replace between 9 and 13 vehicles, and that the yearly greenhouse gas emissions for one household could decrease by 34 to 41% due to car sharing. Car sharing can also contribute to societal benefits such as less fares, less traffic, and less congestion. A study by True Price found that 4 sharing economy companies created a social value of €4 million in 2014 through higher quality and quantity of social contacts, increased trust, autonomy, and improved health. The sharing economy can formulate an answer to challenges like isolation, urbanization, overconsumption, and can build social capital and strong communities. The sharing economy also opens the door to higher inclusiveness through enabling excluded parts of the society to participate and reach a higher level of living standard through access. Initiatives such as the collaboration between Share Your Meal and the Amsterdam City Pass Solutions is a good example of how to increase inclusiveness. The City Pass exists for inhabitants in Amsterdam who have a low income and few assets, and provides discounts for such on, for example, museums, swimming pools, and theaters. Share Your Meal is a home cooking restaurant where people can cook meals for other people, who can pick up the meal at the person who cooked it. The collaboration was piloted, and people with a City Pass could get a near-free meal where the city paid for most of the costs of the meal. And finally, from an economic point of view, resources will not be wasted once they are in the market. And it has been argued that the overall productivity and efficiency of the economy is improved. A study on the economic impact of home sharing by Airbnb, for example, showed that the role in Paris during 1 year between 2012 and 2013 generated €185 million and supported 1,100 jobs. In another study on Funding Circle in the UK, 32% of the businesses said that they would likely not have received external funding without the Funding Circle. Moving on to micro-benefits, we look at the micro-benefits for the prosumers, that is, the producers and the consumers on the platform, on the sharing economy platform. The market can become more elastic, which could lead to higher levels and more accurate matching of supply and demand. And such competition can also lead to lower prices, better quality, and more choice for consumers. The search cost for finding assets and services for consumers can be lower. The sharing economy can provide another source of income for providers. And as a user, life can become more affordable, convenient, and efficient. The sharing economy can also create benefits for the entrepreneur or the company. For example, it can help improve the business and competitiveness through re-evaluating the market role of the company. They can do this through experimenting with moving away from being a mere product provider to, for example, a trusted advisor or matchmaker. Additionally, it can help reformulate the value proposition and increase the product and service variation through product and service innovation. Such innovation can also lead to reduced costs, for example, in inventory, production, and logistics. And it can also lead to increased sales, for example, through opening up new, undiscovered markets of consumers and testing the new market concepts. Additionally, the sharing economy provides an opportunity to build a business model around wasted value and assets without having to invest in product inventory, which can lower the barrier to enter the market. A good example of this is Airbnb, who managed to create the biggest hotel chain without owning any buildings. The sharing economy can also help meeting new customer preferences. For example, expectations of ultra-personalized offers, an abundance of alternatives, time savings, cost reductions, and quality assurance. As an example, in a study by PwC, 63% of users found it more fun to engage with a sharing economy solution in comparison with a traditional solution. Additionally, in the current economy, consumers cannot engage with only one party to satisfy many or all their needs. Traditional companies could utilize the sharing economy to create solutions that satisfy a whole experience rather than separate products and services. This would focus on the ecosystem value rather than the individual customer value. The sharing economy can also help increase the customer engagement. For example, some companies experiment with involving many of their stakeholders in producing new products and solutions. And finally, the sharing economy can help rebrand the company in a more sustainable way. The sharing economy also brings about challenges. We will start by looking at the macro challenges, starting with the lack of an infrastructure for a sharing economy. Our economy and society is built on a linear model. The sharing economy is part of a major shift in how we manage, power, and move our economy, and it will lead to short-term disruption, creating challenges such as market distortion and job losses. Sharing businesses have already disrupted markets, causing turmoil. Meanwhile, there are challenges for sharing businesses themselves due to the current system, starting with regulatory hurdles such as compliance with quality standards and health and safety, employee protection, labor rights, and governmental action could even potentially make a sharing solution illegal. Other hurdles lie in licensing and insurance, for example. The next challenge relates to capitalism 2.0. The sharing economy, as it has formed until today, has been argued to be another version of capitalism, emphasizing the part of economy rather than the sharing in the concept. Previously, you probably would have lent out your car to a friend when he or she asked for it. Nowadays, there's an opportunity cost attached to your idle standing car, giving you the option to either supply your friend in need or your own wallet. It is important to be aware of the fact that the sharing economy has a tendency to monetize all resources that are owned by individuals. For the sharing economy to have a positive effect on the economy, society, and ecology, it is essential to consider the features described earlier in this module. In the end, the actual impact comes down to the ambition and purpose of the sharing initiative. The next challenge relates to inclusive or exclusive of the sharing economy. It is difficult to know whether the sharing economy solutions actually help increase inclusiveness. The people who actually have enough money to own assets will benefit through earning more money and have more possibilities in the economy. This doesn't necessarily create more inclusiveness. Additionally, sharing economy risks may affect the ones with low income and low wealth more since they may not have access to legal recourse. The sharing technologies could also exclude the ones who aren't tech savvy or even have access to necessary technologies. And there may also be hidden bias in algorithms, making some sharing platforms struggle with discrimination. A study of Airbnb in the United States showed that male Afro-American providers earn 12% less than other hosts with similar types of accommodation. Studies have shown that racial discrimination occurs as a result of higher availability of personal information, and that there is a significant racial disadvantage in ratings, reviews, and prices charged. The last micro challenge relates to the rebound effect. The promise of the sharing economy is that we distribute products better and therefore use less products, which would lead to having less ecological footprint. However, when people save money through access instead of ownership, they have more money left to spend. If they choose to spend this on other products or, for example, more travel, the ecological positive effect is diminished. Next, we will discuss the micro-challenges of the entrepreneur and the company. The first challenge relates to the new ways of doing business. A challenge for sharing economy businesses will be to change people's mindsets and behavior from ownership to access. Additionally, the consumer demands are changing and increasing, and sharing businesses also need to be able to compete with the convenience and value that traditional businesses offer. For traditional companies, a challenge can be its legacy when engaging in the sharing economy. An established business has its robust structure and administration, and changing whole systems and ways of thinking are very challenging. Additionally, it has been suggested that it is challenging for sharing economy initiatives to find collaborators, and the traditional companies are not ready for this yet. Of course, there are case studies that counter this. The next challenge relates to building your business model. Many startups have failed even when the business model has been viable in theory, and even after following many of the tips that are mentioned in this online training. How to build a business model in the sharing economy is elaborated more in Module 3. Scaling has been suggested as a necessity to become profitable, but achieving scale has also proven difficult for many startups. Scaling and funding are aspects that will be further discussed in Module 3. The next challenge relates to marketplace. One of the challenges that face entrepreneurs and companies engaging in the sharing economy is balancing supply and demand. The supply and demand is also called producers and consumers, also called the prosumers. The prosumers are called the community within this online training. Startups and initiatives have failed due to one side not being cultivated enough, and platforms still struggle to get it right. It's the sharing economy chicken and egg problem. Which side do you start building, and how do you continue balancing both sides in order to provide value for the participants? Building a community in the sharing economy is further discussed in Module 2. The next challenge relates to managing customer experience. Community engagement is crucial, and avoiding an inconsistent experience for the prosumer is a challenge. In a study by PwC in the United States, it was deducted that 72% of the respondents agreed that they feel that the sharing economy experience is not consistent. Companies that own their own inventory face less of a struggle since they can control the provider or the supply side. Furthermore, it is important not to assume what the prosumers want and need, but to keep asking questions and test. Keep asking yourself if you are really solving problems and provide value for your prosumers. Finally, the last challenge relates to trust, security, privacy issues, and accountability. The sharing economy is built on trust among participants. This, however, comes with a few challenges. First, building trust is not straightforward. It takes time, and there are many pitfalls. Security poses big challenges since the sharing solutions often build on or combined with online activity. Having personal details such as payment and personal identity information is a large security and privacy issue which directly connects to the trust towards the company. The security issue is also related to the trust between individuals on the platform. If the consumer fails to pay for the product or service, or the producer fails to deliver, participants will be unhappy. With a service and lose trust in the individual and potentially in the platform as well. This relates to accountability, and the sharing business must have mitigation strategies such as licensing, insurances, and review systems in place to establish accountability. These topics will be further discussed in Module 2. Content creators are Teresa Thomason and Joris Terlouw, circular and sharing economy experts, and co-founders of Circular Action Tools, where we advise companies in how to explore and realize their circular business potential. Consulting expert was Peter van de Glint, co-founder of ShareNL and Sharing Cities Alliance, and we held interviews with practitioners as displayed in this image. We have now gone through Module 1. Module 1 also consists of exercises which can be found and submitted on Moodle. Insights from the field can be found in the reading format of this content. Images used in this presentation can be found in the list of references in Moodle. We will now go to Module 2. In here we will explain tools for building a sharing community.